Today, we're going to talk about how to write behavioral objectives. There is a right way and there is a wrong way, and we're going to get into that today. Stay with us, we're coming up. You have instructional design questions. We discuss answers. There is something that is so satisfying about having a system or a process in place to guide thinking. Without a process, a project can turn pretty overwhelming within a blink. I remember the first time that I had to write out some behavioral objectives, and it was in a class that I took that Chuck was the instructor. And there was something about having this true process in place that took away my anxieties. And it also took away potential roadblocks that I know would have been in my head, like writer's block, if you will. And it helped me to thrive in the whole process of creating these objectives. Don't get me wrong, I did flub up my objectives, and Chuck was quick to point those out to me, which I was really grateful, of course, as my instructor. He was always there to guide me as a student. And so when he did, things made sense. They just made sense. So today, we're going to talk to Chuck about this, about how to write behavioral objectives that will help us guide through the process of the whole instructional systems development process. So Chuck, could you please help us to distinguish the difference between terminal and enabling objectives to get us started?
Oh, I'm going to start there. Well, terminal enabling objectives are two classifications that we use as instructional designers to try to clarify where we are in the process of not only taking a course, but designing a course. So a terminal objective is the end outcome of your course. So what will this learner be able to do at the end of this course? And it's usually just one objective. These are incredibly hard to write sometimes because you try to capsulize everything in a course as an incompetency. But terminal objectives are really important in instructional design because it gets the designer to think about what is this person going to be able to do when they leave this course? How can I describe that? And terminal objectives are built from enabling objectives. So a terminal objective for a course might have hundreds of enabling objectives. And each enabling objective is one act or one observable aspect of a greater terminal objective. So if you're going, think about it in terms of, gosh, trying to put together something from IKEA. Okay, so your terminal objective would be that the Invar desk will, eventually be able to support your computer if done correctly. Right? So that's your terminal
In
objective. But
theory,
each,
yes.
in theory, especially with the Invar desk, but the notion then is enabling objectives. So think about the procedure to get to that. So first thing you do is count the parts. So learners should be able to determine that all parts are within the box to be able to assemble the item, et cetera, et cetera. So imagine that for each step as you go through this process. And this is one example, but that's a very kind of a programmed example, but that's the same across everything you do in instructional design. So terminal enabling, end product, and the sum of the parts is a terminal objective. The parts are the enabling objectives, and you sum those up to get your terminal objective.
I find it, I said in the beginning that I find it really satisfying to have a process in place. And so when you just mentioned that one of the first things that maybe an enabling objective is you take all the parts out and you count them and you make sure that you have them. And I can so relate to this at this very moment because I just ordered a TV stand from Wayfair and it looked just like the IKEA directions where everything was packaged up, and I did exactly that. I laid everything out, and it's just satisfying to go through that kind of process where you lay everything out, count them, put everything in a process of what step comes after what step after what step. And before you know it, you feel empowered because you've made it through all the steps and you have, well, in theory, you have a working TV stand. It took a little time, but it got there. So I feel empowered by that whole
That's
process.
the beauty of this. So the thing that you learn about instructional designers is that we are very detail oriented. To be a good designer, you need to be able to dig down until there's nothing else to dig up. And the way this works is, as you put together a course, you've got to make sure that you have every aspect of this. So your enabling objectives will be just everything you got to do. And this is one reason that some people come into the field and it's just not for them. There's a very small number of people, but it's just too much detail. Something you think should take 5 minutes will take you 5 days because there's a lot of stuff there.
It's interesting because one of the exercises, the first exercises that you tasked our class with in the beginning class in instructional systems design for UMBC, it was to write out the enabling steps, so terminal and enabling steps for making a cup of tea. And when I first saw that assignment, I thought, oh, this is going to be so easy, right? I know I make tea every day several times. Like, how hard can this be? I thought this is almost too simple, that it could be difficult because it's too simple. And of course, as I got into thinking about the actual steps, I think I came up with 20 enabling steps to do, objectives to do to make a cup of tea, that when you really think through the process that a learner is going to have to go through, it's a fun process. It really is fun to think about every little step you have to do something as simple as making a cup of tea.
And now you want to take that, take it to an even larger degree to something you do professionally. So I use the paramedic example a lot because people are familiar with paramedics. They show up in an ambulance, they make you feel better, and they put you in the bag, take you to the hospital, or save your life with a defibrillator, whatever they do. But the whole notion of this is, can you imagine an 1,800-hour program to be certified as a paramedic, and how many separate little pieces go into that? And if you look at the binder for one of those courses, I mean, it's 3-inch binder after 3-inch binder after 3-inch binder, because you have to detail each of these steps for each of these processes. You can't shortcut. You can't say, well, they should know that. So making tea, when I teach in class and we do this exercise, I always have them do a cheese sandwich. And it's even more fun when you do it with a group, because groupthink always gives you more stuff than one think, right? So if you get 5 ideas by yourself, then in a group, you're going to get 15. So I've had as many as 35 or 40 objectives for making a cheese sandwich, because they come up with every possible variable on the kind of cheese, the kind of bread, the kind of condiment, what temperature should it be? How do you store it? How do you cut the bread? And this is what design is all about. It's going into level of detail that nobody appreciates until they actually do it. So with your tea making, every time you make a cup of tea, I bet you think about it, don't you?
Every single time.
Yeah, and I apologize for that, but
I think Chuck O'Dell every time I make a cup of tea.
Well, don't do that because it might ruin it. But I think that the notion is that that's the kind of level of detail. So that's why I always start with these very simple things in beginning courses, because I want you to get the process down. I want you to think that whatever you think is going on, multiply times 10, 20, 30, 40. And that's where a good designer will say, okay, all right, let's look at all these things.
Now, what about the 4 elements of behavioral objectives? What are they? Can you break them down for us?
I sure can. And just think of it this way: A, B, C, D. So first 4 letters of the alphabet, we did it that way so everybody could remember it. No, we didn't, but that's, you have to be clever sometimes to get people to remember things, get these acronyms perfect. So audience, behavior, condition, and degree. And there are different formats for this. I have formal and informal objectives within my scheme of things. There are 5-part objectives. I've even seen 6-part objectives. So depending on who the theorist was and what they decided to come up with, I think the most accepted format now is the 4-part with audience, behavior, condition, degree. So let's go through each one of these because each one is important. So A, audience. A lot of people at the very beginning of design will think this is unnecessary. But this is your population. Who is this person? Is it someone taking a specific course? Is it someone trying to learn to do a specific thing? And like many things in ISD, it's not so much exactly what the product of this thought process is, but it's the thought process. So with audience, you want to make sure that you really know who this audience is. You may be able to write it in 3 or 4 seconds and come up with your audience statement for an objective, but have you really defined who that audience is? So is this intermediate, beginner, advanced? All kinds of things go into this. So if you see one of these ignored and completely left off, it's almost always the audience statement. I don't agree with it, but there you go. So behavior is second, and behavior is really the meat of this whole thing. This is what you expect a learner to be able to do. And it's written, learner should be able to do X, or will be able to do X, or should be able to do X. And this is the very observable and measurable portion of the objective. This is the task. This is the thought process. This is how you get to the final product. So behavior you have to have. If you have nothing else, have a behavior. Learner should be able to
And you always
whatever.
use like the words should or will be able to. Are they
Most
interchangeable
formats,
or?
yeah, you can. The problem is there's some legalities around will be able to or must be able to. So I know of people that you must be able to for objectives, and they were sued just because
Oh,
this notion is you can't make me do something. I mean, they didn't win, but you have to think about the language. If I was in a corporate setting, or if I had a legal department, I would run the wording by them. Not to worry, get you excited about it, but should be able to is what most people use. Other people use different things, but as you get up into the level of proficiency required, you will see must be able to. So you must be able to perform CPR. And if you think about it, if someone's going to come up to your house and you or a family member need assistance, do you want somebody that should be able to? Or do you want somebody who must be able to? Oh, they did it 1 out of 3 times in training. I'm feeling pretty good about that. No, I want them to do it 3 out of
yeah,
3.
yeah.
You must be able to. So, the legalities aside, I think you need to think about what is the level of expectation and performance requirement.
Right. Like if it's
And
a life and death type of situation, you're certifying somebody to save someone's life. Must is probably a good word to
yeah, I
use.
would go with must, and that's generally what they use. So there you have behavior. Condition is what you provide the learner to be able to do something. Conditions are often ignored, and they're sometimes the most important thing. And if you watch our session on performance agreement, you'll find out condition is important to this. So if you are having a course online or in classroom or blended or whatever, so what are the things you're going to provide the learner? Is there going to be a textbook? Are there going to be handouts? Are there going to be videos they're expected to watch? Is there going to be a lecture? Is there going to be a group discussion? All those are conditions. And if you don't provide all the conditions for a learner that are prescribed in an objective, then you can't always evaluate mastery effectively or efficiently. So let's say you're supposed to have a text chapter to read, but you don't provide the text chapter.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
trying to,
that's probably going to be a problem.
and it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is one thing you will see all the time is people don't provide the right conditions for learning. So conditions and degree, when we talk about that, we're talking about evaluation of mastery. So what is the level of proficiency that your objective requires? And there's all kind of different ways to look at this. Without error, without failure, once in 3 attempts, twice in 3 attempts. Some people use time as a degree element. I think that's a little bit risky because if I can do something poorly in 5 minutes, wouldn't you rather I did it the way you wanted me to, however long it took?
Good point.
So sometimes novice designers fall back on time, and you have to be very careful about that. But still, time is better than nothing. But if the only thing is that really what you want to decide if somebody can do something or not, is they do it within a certain period of time? I mean, I could build a house, but I would have to be able to do it within 7 years because I'm not a good carpenter, right? So if I
It's
write an objective, you will be able to build a house, and you have 7 years to do it.
yeah,
We'd be
that's.
just fine.
Could you give us an example of how one would be written? This way we can put that in our brains
Sure.
and see and be able to
Yeah, that's
visualize that.
important because it's not written ABCD, of course.
No? That's
You
going to
always
make it
start with
really
the
hard.
condition. Yeah, of course. And you're going to put up an example. But what you want to start with is conditions. So given X, and then you want to go to the audience statement, the learner. So given whatever, the 602 student, then your behavior should be able to, and then degree without error. So it's condition, audience, behavior, degree. That is the format that most people use. Can you do it different ways? Of course. But within the field, it's usually that format.
Okay, that's very helpful. Now, what words should be avoided when writing these behavioral objectives?
Well, the thing that you will find whenever I interview people to hire them as designers, probably, hundreds at this point. The one thing I ask them to do is write a 4-part objective. And I'll be happy with a 3-part objective. But if I see things like understand, anybody that puts understand in objective should be immediately ejected from the field. You cannot evaluate understand. As you look at me in this video, what do I understand? How would you know? I mean, you just can't do it. So there is a list of things. Generally, what you want to do is look at Bloom's taxonomy or another set of words you can use in your behaviors. And there's lots of lists out there. If you have any of my books, you can look back and through there. I always list them. But the notion is you want to be observable and measurable. So any word that's not observable and measurable, either in your behavior or your degree element. So generally LY words, you have to think about that too. So,
Like
as a background,
successfully or
yeah, what's successfully? I mean, if you ask a student what successfully is, it's a lot less than what an instructor will expect, right? So you have this whole issue of trying to negotiate what's actually going on here. So everything needs to be observable and measurable. Look at Bloom's work, look at different lists that are out there, certainly hundreds of different ways to look at it. But the notion is if I can't see it and I can't measure it, I don't want to use it.
Perfect. That's very helpful. Subjective terms should just be thrown out the window.
Don't even think about it. If you ever
throw 'em
use
out.
understand, turn in your instructional design license. We will find you. We have ways.
It's one of those words you can see a red line right through it. Slash it out.
Oh, and they're always so proud too when they use it. And to be honest, before I got any formal education in this, was designing stuff, I used it all the time. I mean, don't you understand? Understand? Can't
Right.
you understand what you're supposed? I mean, it's a natural thing to say, and we all say it. And sometimes I even catch myself doing it. So as much as I kid about it, I mean, you have to consciously think about it. And the other thing, Denise, that I think is so important about objectives is you may think you'll reach a point at which these are easy to write. There's never a point at which these are easy to write. You have to think about it every time. And what I tell designers that are struggling writing them is most of the time, if you can't write objectives, because you got a problem somewhere in your design. So either you're asking your learner to do something that you really can't do or whatever. And the other thing that you find too is people try to put more than one behavior in an objective, and you never want to do that. Each objective is for one learner and one thing. So don't try to gang up on behaviors. Don't try to put a range of things in one objective. These would be one behavior for one learner.
And so I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this and that people are also clear on this. For each terminal objective, you can have many enabling objectives. But for each,
Correct.
you can have many terminal objectives, and each of those terminal objectives have their own set of enabling objectives.
That is correct.
Okay.
So that's that relationship. What is the end behavior that you want from a learner? That is your terminal objective. And a lot of times when designers are putting together programs, they try to cram too much stuff into one course. And if you can't write one terminal objective, then you've got more than one topic. You have more than one pocket of content. So it goes back to the notion, if I can't write an objective for it, I got something else going on. And this is what you'll find when you try to do 3 or 4 modules in one module. They don't fit, so you can't write a terminal objective. There's no rational way that you can try to express that in one terminal objective. You got 4. You got 4 content areas, you got 4 terminal objectives.
All right.
And if you decide to put those into one course, then you have to design it as such. And that takes a lot of skill to do that. So If you have trouble writing them, and we all have trouble writing them, it may be because there's something else going on in your design. So step back a little bit, look at what you're trying to accomplish, and see what you're struggling with in terms of trying to write these.
Great information, Chuck. As always, I love listening to your explanations of things because you have a way of putting it in such a way that is crystal clear in my mind. And I hope that our viewers feel the same way. And I'm sure that they do. All right, so I wanted to just say thank you so much, everyone, for listening, tuning in. Be sure to check out our other videos that we have on our channel. We are padding it with much information that we hope that you will find valuable. And as always, don't be afraid to comment below. We love to hear from you. And if you have questions, we'll answer them. And, well, Chuck will answer them most likely. Because he is the content and subject matter expert here. And
yes, I will answer them.
I could listen to him all day long. I feel like a student of the universe here, and I hope you all do too. So have a great day. Stay safe out there.